Hello class, welcome to my Module 5 video discussion. So let's jump right in. Starting with question 1. Recall an issue or incident you faced in a current or previous workplace that involved communication between coworkers and supervisors that either worked well or horribly. Describe the incident and then apply at least 3 of the key perspectives from this chapter to your incident. What do you believe the authors and scholars mentioned here would say about your experience? What was the role of the communication? How might applying information in this chapter have improved the outcomes? Well, since I don't really have any work experience, I can't really talk about issues I had with coworkers. I can't really answer this question. So instead of the 3 issues with coworkers, I'll talk about the issues related to downward communication, upward communication, and informal communication. So starting with downward communication. Downward communication is when organizations deliver their messages starting from the top of the hierarchy, like where the CEOs and corporate executives are. They create policies, or these executives, they create policies or assign new orders for employees, and these messages gets traveled down the organization all the way down to the managers and eventually hitting the lowest ranks of the hierarchy. It's useful for a corporation to issue new goals to make changes, and that's why it's really common to see organizations use downward communication. Actually, every organization uses downward communication. But there are 2 problems known for downward communications. On page 208 and on 209, it talks about the first issue, and that is the accuracy of information. When a message is being passed down through hundreds or even thousands of people, especially if it's a big organization, the message becomes diluted the more it gets passed down. It's similar to the classic telephone game we played or seen kids play, if you know what I mean. The second issue with the downward communication, talked on page 209, is the adequacy of information, meaning if the message is sent by the corporate executives is enough to help managers to continue to do work. Downward communication also has an issue with overloading employees sometimes with too much tasks, or underloading them, and then the employees don't have much to do in their job. Upward communication, on the other hand, is the opposite of downward communication. It is where messages start from the bottom of the hierarchy and it works its way up to the management. Upward communication helps to inform the management about problems going on between employees or any issues within the organization in general. Management can use this information to think of ways to fix problems or to update current procedures and practices in the company. Page 226 and 227 talk about the 2 primary issues with upward communication. The first issue is that most employees don't like to raise issue or concern to their bosses because of lack of trust or the rivalry between them. And the last type of organization communication discussed in this is informal communication. This is a type of communication that does not exist within the structure of organized communication. In fact, this type of communication is the most used in organizations. 70% of all communication is in an organization is informal communication. A good example of informal communication would be when you talk to another coworker in a bathroom or a break room outside of the organization. That's considered informal. The major problem of informal communication is the reliability. Page 245 states that 75% to 75% to 95% of informal information is inaccurate. No, sorry, is accurate. 75 to 95% of informal information is accurate. If you think about it, that's actually pretty bad, because that 25% of unreliability of information can cause like problems in organization and slow things down. All right, so moving on to second question. Apply Mishara's take on grapevines to your own organizational experience. How do they work? What are their purpose, outcomes, and what ways do they impact organizations? So grapevines is basically another name for informal communication. Grapevine communication works in four ways. Pages 245 through 246 discusses about these. The first one works in a single strand network. It's the classic way of delivering messages. One person gets a message, then it goes to the next, and then the next, and then so on. The second way it works is through gossip communication network. This is when a person in a group presents the message, and then other people present it in other groups. The third type is the cluster network. This is similar to the linear message, except the delivery, the message delivery grows exponentially to like a tree. For example, if I find two people, and then these two people, and I tell them this a message, then each of those two people find three other people, and then those three people find, like, I don't know, five more people, and it keeps growing. That's the cluster network. Hence the name cluster network, because the message is being delivered to clusters of people. The last is the probability communication network. It's when the message is delivered to random people in the organization. Okay, question 3. How does understanding networking within an organization benefit or harm an organization? Think brass and be specific through examples. By understanding communication networks, you will understand how messages are being transmitted in your organization. Network analysis looks at the relationship and links of communicators, frequency of communication, and how stable the link between the communicators are, and how it travels within the organization. This information can be helpful for like managers or CEO to help them determine how to like change up the policies for communication in your organization to help make things more efficient, to make the messages flow faster. And this was discussed on pages 249 through 258. And that is, I believe that is all. Yeah, that is all for this week's video. See you guys Wednesday.